Trump administration is set to fly in tens of thousands of South African white people to the United States as refugees next week. And yet Kilmar Abrego Garcia sits in an El Salvadorian prison for what? For what? Things that you couldn't prove.
And as the administration continues to find ways to quickly deport as many undocumented immigrants as possible, we've also been learning about the White House suspending virtually all refugee admissions. But there is one group the State Department is fast-tracking: white Afrikaners from South Africa. The New York Times reports the first group will be flown in on Monday and that the administration is preparing to help the Afrikaners find temporary or longer-term housing and basic home furnishings, essential household items, and cleaning supplies, along with groceries, weather-appropriate clothing, diapers, formula, hygiene products, and prepaid phones that support the day-to-day well-being of households. Joining us now, New York Times reporter Hamed Ali Aziz, who covers the Department of Homeland Security and immigration policy. All right, so why is this group getting special treatment?
Well, it appears that President Trump has been focused on this group of individuals in South Africa, known as the Afrikaners, for a while now. And earlier this year, after he suspended refugee admissions for nearly everyone around the globe, he made a tiny carve-out for these Afrikaners. And since then, the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the entire government has been working relentlessly to get these Afrikaners into the United States as refugees.
If you don't remember, back in January 20th, Trump signed an executive order basically stating we don't want to bring in any more refugees. We're not bringing in any more refugees. Although we know that executive orders don't hold legal weight and it's more than a statement, this is definitely contradicting, isn't it? Well, it's not, because he's a racist. A racist goes against his own actual public statement saying that we can't accept more refugees, but constantly tries to kick out any brown person or any non-white person in this country because of their refugee status, even if they're here legally or not. Now, we know Elon Musk is from South Africa, of course, but he added to this conversation in saying that Africa has not done well at stopping racism and overall violence towards white farmers in Africa. I wonder why. It couldn't be because of the apartheid. Huh? It couldn't be because you made them slaves. This is just another I am outside and I am a racist agenda from Donald Trump, and he proves it in real time. He does not care what he contradicts.
So Trump signed an executive order to bring white South African refugees to America, despite the fact that they suspended any sort of immigration into the U.S. Tell me how it's not racist. I'm waiting.
It's not about race, it's not about race. Then why has the Trump administration chartered a plane specifically to go and resettle white South Africans in the United States as refugees, despite the fact that the Trump administration earlier this year suspended refugee admissions and yet are making an exception for white South Afrikaners? But it's not about race, right? It's not about race. Why are we making everything about race? It was never about race. So why are no exceptions being made for the black and brown refugees and only for the white refugees? And I say refugees very loosely because these people are not trying to escape white racism. They are escaping the repercussions as a result of years of racial oppression at their hands. Retaliation from oppression cannot be called racism. They're simply running from the repercussions of their own actions, the consequences of their actions, if you will. But if it's not about race, why are only the white South Africans being allowed to come to the United States under refugee status, despite refugee admissions being suspended by Trump himself? If it's not about race. I'll wait.
We have some news right now. The Trump administration has chartered a plane to go and resettle a number of white South African residents back to the United States, making an exception for them, despite the fact that Donald Trump suspended refugee admissions into the United States earlier this year. It appears as though there is an exception if you are white and from South Africa to be able to become a refugee in the United States of America, as the State Department has paid and chartered a private plane to bring them into the United States.
A lot of what Trump does upsets me. But what I'm about to tell you has really got me infuriated. I'm disgusted. The Trump regime is chartering a plane with State Department funds to bring home some white folks from South Africa, and will be allowing them to have refugee status. Okay? Refugee status was put on hold. Weren't going to be allowed to do that a few months ago under Trump. And he stated, we don't have any room in the country for anyone else right now, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, we are getting rid of all of the brown people, right? Many of them are not here unlawfully. They were on visas or what have you. So we're not going to argue that, Megan. We're not. Okay. We're getting rid of brown people, claiming we don't have room for them, they're criminals, the whole thing. At the same time that we are now opening up our country to a bunch of folks, we have no idea who they are, who vetted them. Oh, no, we do know who they are. We do. They're white. They're freaking white. Did we suddenly, now we can let refugees back in? Okay. There is no planet that you're ever going to be able to convince me that we're getting rid of a whole bunch of brown people at the same time that we're letting in just white people. And that is going to look like anything other than what it is. Racism. So, MAGA and Trump supporters, I am not ignorant enough to say all of you are racist, because you're not. Not every single person who follows Trump is a racist. I know. It's hard for the rest of us to believe, but it's true. They're not. But most of you are.
Bro, what you mean they about to have 8,000 white South Afrikaner refugees coming over here? Y'all serious? Bro, you are already the majority. Like, how much help do you need? You like that person that claims to be the star player, but literally everybody else does all the work. If you go out on a weekend, like, the place is already filled with a bunch of dudes who want to look like Morgan Wallen and a bunch of girls who probably dyed their hair blonde because they aren't a natural one. And you're telling me there's going to be more of that? Jesus Christ, man. Somebody actually explained to me how they're the beauty standard when they're literally everywhere. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but rarities are usually looked at as, something that's cool. Not something that you see every 5 fucking seconds. No, seriously, what in the dystopian color of friendship is this bullshit? I literally called out their stupid ass plan to go make the Great Wall of Ivory like months ago. But nobody listened. Oh no, if you're an immigrant of another color, we don't want you here, but hey, you don't have UV resistance? Bring your ass over here. Like, you have to ask a questionnaire. Oh, are you an immigrant? Yes. Is the sun super effective against you? Yes. Then come on over. This is so stupid, man.
So the Trump administration is not allowing anybody from the southern border to be able to seek asylum, but he's allowing South Africans to seek asylum?
South Africa has faced racial persecution. In fact, the government there has vowed to take away their farmland that they own. And so the president has talked significantly about this. As for further details on refugee claims and asylum claims, I would defer you to the State Department.
So again, no one that crosses that border from the southern border can seek asylum, but yet he could go ahead and make room for South Africans who are just losing land, as opposed to South Americans who are fleeing their countries from gangs, from violence, from crime. He says no to them, but he's saying yes to those South Africans who are losing land. If this administration has not shown you yet that they are racist as this is an indicator. This is a great example. So all the brown people, but he'll bring in South Africans who are white not the black ones, but the white ones, here to the United States.
So, real quick update here. I have to thank Vicky for this. She hit me to this video I didn't know was existing, and I didn't know this was going on. But on Monday, Trump had signed an executive order maybe a week ago, to allow 8,000 white South Africans to be brought to the United States. You heard right. 8,000 white South Africans escaping the racism that is in Africa, apparently. Bringing them here to the United States. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're deporting brown people, Asians, and others, and importing white people. So let's make sure we give them a warm reception when they get here.
They only want white people here. Because when we think about refugees who need immediate resettlement, expedited screenings, we usually think about people who are fleeing extreme violence, persecution, famine, war in places like South Sudan, Myanmar, the Congo, not white Afrikaners. See that chartered plane the Trump administration is sending? It's not going to collect refugees that have been sitting in resettlement camps for years, fully vetted, waiting to come to the United States to escape violence. No, it's going to South Africa to collect white people who claim they're being discriminated against. Why would they be getting discriminated against? Probably because they spent generations instituting legalized forms of racial segregation and discrimination called apartheid, aka Stephen Miller's wet dream. See, while the rest of the world after World War II saw that maybe racial discrimination not such a hot idea and favored more policies of integration and away from colonization, Afrikaners doubled down on that shit and instituted apartheid. Although it ended over 30 years ago, the social and economic legacies of apartheid continue today. South Africa is the most unequal country in the entire world, according to the World Bank, with white South Africans earning over 12 times what black South Africans do. But don't worry, we're going to make sure that the white Afrikaners who instituted generations of discrimination and segregation against black people get everything they need to get started here in the United States in their new life.
Okay, my MAGA faithful, where y'all at? What are y'all gonna say? Your president is opening these borders again. You see, that's the one thing. That is the one thing that I know for a fact all of you have continued to hang your hat on. With everything else going wrong, you have been able to say with confidence that he has closed up our borders and he has not been letting any new immigrants come in. Now, while that was not true, you believed it and you have been preaching it. You've been saying that even if I don't like some of the other things going on, even if I'm not a fan of the tariffs, I like what he's doing with the border. I like that we are closing off immigration. I like the fact that we are not taking American resources and using them to give to people that are not from this country. But your president, as usual, has broken every promise he's ever made to you. He has never stood on business for one thing that he's promised you. And now it looks like our borders are opening up once again for refugees. But not any type of refugees. He is bringing Afrikaners, white Afrikaners. Not only that, he is setting up housing for these people. They are going to be able to get things like baby formula for their children. They're going to get prepaid phones. They're going to get opportunities to register for citizenship the second they get here. The American people are out here unable to pay for basic things as far as living goes. People are struggling to pay their rent. People are having a lot of issues trying to make ends meet on a day-to-day basis. There's actually a lot of people in red states right now who have been going through disasters month after month, tornadoes, hurricanes, all these types of things that have destroyed your areas. You've been begging the government for aid from FEMA. They've said no. You've been begging the government to give you any sort of aid that was already promised under the Biden administration. They've said no. And all the while they keep telling you because we don't have it. Whenever the American people need something, they don't have it. They can't find it. Wasteful spending, fraud and abuse. Even if you voted for him, they cannot find the money. But somehow they find it. Somehow they find the resources to now charter planes in hopes of bringing thousands of white Afrikaners, South African people here to this country. How do you feel about that? Are you going to keep saying promises made, promises kept? Are you going to blame Joe Biden for this? Are you going to say Joe Biden has opened up these borders and let these people flood in because he didn't? Or are you just going to cop to your usual excuse, let everything play out? You know, are you going to say this is what you voted for because you stood 10 toes down on something like this not being what you voted for? By the way, how are those grocery prices treating you? How them shelves looking? Because I've been to the grocery store. They are thinning out. But hey, whatever's going on here does not matter. You guys losing jobs, he says that's a good thing for me to see. And all while that's taking place, he is about to take the money that should be going to American people, the way that you guys say, and use it on immigrants to give them a better life here in this country. The exact thing that you guys complained about for 4 years.
Not that I haven't been screaming that this is about racism, but Trump confirmed it. Trump has chartered a plane with our tax money to go to South Africa and pick up a bunch of white South African refugees and bring them to the United States. Trump's administration is aiming to bring the first group, there's going to be more groups, of South Africans to the United States via its refugee program as soon as next week. A divisive effort given that Trump has been blocking refugee admissions from the rest of the world. Okay, so we know this has got something to do with Elon. It's probably like his fucking family or something like that. The Trump administration aims to fly the initial cohort of about 50 Afrikaners into Washington, Dulles, requesting anonymity to share internal plans. The group would participate in a press conference at the airport and then board flights to their U.S. destinations. Trump kicked off a wide-ranging immigration crackdown after taking office in January, including an indefinite suspension of refugee resettlement. In a related executive order, Republican President said the U.S. would only admit refugees who can fully and appropriately assimilate. Lord. Despite the broad refugee freeze, Trump in February called on the U.S. to prioritize resettling Afrikaners, descendants of mostly Dutch early settlers, saying they were victims of unjust racial discrimination. The white people were victims of discrimination. The assertion that minority white South Africans face discrimination from the black majority has spread in far-right circles for years and been echoed by Trump's white South African-born ally Elon Musk. The average white household in South Africa owns 20 times the wealth of the average black household, according to the Review of Political Economy. Don't ever tell me it's not about racism ever again.
Well, I have got some hot tea in the brew for you, baby. Now grab your cup and pull on up because we're about to break it down expeditiously. If you remember last week, I did a video called A Lesson is in Session. As a matter of fact, I think it was Saturday, just like today, but just a week back. Either way, in that video, I broke down their real plans, the white man, and how he's so very terrified that there's not enough white here on his side. Yes, it just so happens on Monday, we're getting a whole plane load of white into town from out of town. Yes, they told you the mass deportations that we were doing to get rid of the brown had nothing to do with them being brown, but it had to do with the fact that they were all criminals, violent, in fact. And then they started deporting grandmothers and grandfathers and even babies and 2-year-olds too. I wonder what a 2-year-old could have possibly done to you. But either way, back in February, he pulled out his Sharpie one night and he signed an executive order to put some whites on a flight. And Monday is that day. Here's some receipts for you because this story is absolutely true. The Trump administration is chartering a plane to bring the first white South Africans to the USA as refugees, baby. Like I said on Monday, I do believe to Dallas is where they will be flying in on their flight. All you gotta be is white. Yes, tell me again how it's all about violent criminals and has nothing to do with their skin color, my friends, even though we're deporting 2-year-old children today. Even kids with cancer have to get on a plane and depart out of our way. Yes, I don't want to hear another Republican, a Republicant, and a Republicant come at me and try to pull some it's not racial stunt. And by the way, y'all remember that little rumor that was about Alonia Muskrat over there in Texas building a little city? Yes, all the MAGA were getting excited. They thought they were going to be able to move to Alonia's new city that was being built with homes and even schools. Well, apparently, boo, that city wasn't built for you, but for more South African immigrants that are white, like Alonia Muskrat. Oh, well. I guess they're doing more for whites that don't live here than they're actually doing for whites that live here as they're stripping your rights of due process away from you. But the brown can't stay around. And by the way, if you are in South Africa today and you think you're going to board that plane and come over here and everything's going to be fine, honey, you are insane. Don't believe that lie. You will still be outnumbered here if you just so happen to think it's okay to hate the black and brown, dear. Anyway, please share this video because I think we need to get it out into the everywheres. And one more thing. Apparently these are supposed to be farmers coming here to plow the land. Maybe you should look at what, well, that orange man is currently doing to farmers who actually live in this land. Okay.
I'm just thinking, where is all the outrage from Republicans/MAGA in regards to Donald Trump bringing 8,000 white South African refugees here? I thought we were against refugees. I thought we were against immigrants. Where's your outrage? Why are you okay with our tax dollars bringing refugees here? Shouldn't our tax dollars go to veterans? Shouldn't our tax dollars go to the homeless people in America? Because we know there's a lot of homeless people in America. We're the richest, strongest country in the world, and the amount of homeless people here is a disgrace. But you're okay with 8,000 white South Africans coming here, aren't you? Well, I'm not. I'm not okay with it, and I'm not okay with racism.
So Trump found his heart. He's going to help these poor whites from South Africa who are being, according to him, being treated horribly, living in terrible conditions, facing racism, just being treated inhumanely, and having their land seized. And they're going to be able to come here within 3 months and have refugee status, which is great because every other refugee, it takes like 2 years if you're from South America, Central America, island nations, Middle Eastern nations. It takes like up to 2 years. So, hey, they're really speeding up the process for these whites in South Africa. But there's like 7% of the nation, or under 10% of the nation's white. And like 70% of the nation is owned by whites. And, well, during apartheid, they kicked all of the black people out of the white areas. Like for Cape Town, for instance, you can't live in Cape Town. You can work here for the whites, but no, you've got to live out here in the poor sections, in these shacks, in these rundown areas. But when apartheid ended and white people started realizing things weren't so rosy on the other side whenever things changed, and they started living along with some of these in these black communities, in these shacks. Trump doesn't care about that. He would just call that area to be disgusting. I mean, he doesn't care. This guy has zero heart. He just doesn't want anyone of color living here. He's trying to do just like some of these crusaders did in Europe. He wants to make America white. We all know that. It's nothing new. That's what ICE is doing now, is getting rid of the brown in this country. ICE, aka the Klan. So if you believe that Trump actually has a heart because he's helping these whites from South Africa, the Afrikaners, come here, you're blinded by the orange. Yeah. The only land that was ever seized in South Africa was by the original colonizers, their ancestors, that got rid of the herders, the nomads, and the Bantu people. Just like what happened here with the indigenous people. Only we brought over African people here.